Now to the war in Ukraine, where the embattled nation is rallying Western allies for yet more military aid. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is meeting with world leaders seeking tanks and more equipment for the Ukrainian war effort against Russia. But the White House apparently not budging on the tanks so far. Allison Harris is in Washington this morning with the latest on that. Good morning, Allison.
Good morning, Mitch. It's certainly going to be more up to the Pentagon on this. And a senior official at the Pentagon who just returned from meeting President Zelensky tells NewsNation that the U.S. is not there yet on sending Ukraine these tanks that it so desperately is urging the U.S. to send. And what we're talking about are called Abrams tanks, a defense official telling the U.S. that the U.S. doesn't want to send these complicated, telling us, that the U.S. doesn't want to send these complicated, powerful and pricey tanks to Ukrainians who might not be able to maintain them or even afford them. Now, this does not mean that the U.S. is going to send more resources to the war-torn country. The U.S. is readying a massive military aid package expected to be announced in the coming days. And with that, the U.S. could be sending Stryker combat vehicles. The U.S. has already sent Bradley fighting vehicles that can take down Russian tanks as part of a new $3 billion security package. The U.S. has led the world in supplying aid to Ukraine to fight Russia, but now appears to be being a little bit more cautious. Mitch?
And why would that be, Allison? Or what are some of the possible implications beyond the actual war effort of combating Russia?
So there are Republicans on Capitol Hill saying that they do want to support Ukraine, but they also want to see more of an accounting of dollars that are being spent and to make sure that there's still enough military arms to support and protect the home front, the U.S. Now, critics of that thinking really say that the longer the U.S. stalls, the more drawn out the war is going to be, and that could embolden Russia. Zelensky very memorably said that he's asking for just 1% of the tanks that NATO has. The problem is that if the U.S. does not send these tanks, these Abrams tanks that we're talking about, to Ukraine, then Germany says it's also not going to send some of the German-made tanks to Ukraine.
Thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation in your cable lineup. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-based, unbiased coverage.